Okay, so we were up to Mishnah 10, and I'm going to share it with you. Here we go. Shemaya and Avtalion. They are the next pair of what we call the Zugot, the pair of leaders. Shemaya, this is the fourth of the five sets. Shemaya and Avtalion Kiblu Mehem. They received the tradition from the previous Shimon ben Shattach and Yehuda ben Tabai, as we said over here. And Shemaya said, Ehov es hamalacha. You should love work, or love the work, literally. Usina es harabanut, and to literally hate, well, rabbinic but the position, but a high authority position. V'altis fadal rashus, and don't get too close to the authorities. Okay, we're going to just do the first part about loving work today, and the idea of loving work is that it's important for a person to do work. It's important to keep themselves busy. We know that if a person does nothing all day, then well, two things can happen. So first of all, mentally, right? When unfortunately we know when people a lot of times people retire and they're not doing anything, then it's not good for them mentally, and sometimes they deteriorate as a result of that. So a person needs to keep their mind busy, but also you need to keep your body busy as well. You need to keep active physically for the same way that your brain can atrophy, your muscles as well, right? If you we know people who are laid up and they can't move, so then they have to do the rehab in order to get their muscles back. So if a person's sitting around all day, they're not doing anything, then that is what's going to happen as well. And the Rabbeinu Yonah, the Bartanura, they point out that this, even a person who can afford it, even if you don't need to work for a living, a person should still be involved in doing activity and in doing, well, we'll call it work, because being idleness, the Gemara tells you, idleness is going to affect your mental state, and therefore you should keep busy. Also, someone who does nothing is really the character. It's a characteristic of someone who's lazy. It's a bad character trait, because if you don't do anything in terms of keeping yourself busy, then you're not going to do anything useful as well. And when it comes time to be able to do something, then it's going to end up that you're not going to be able to use your muscles, right? If you say, "Oh, look, I don't have to do anything now," so you take it easy. You don't walk around, you don't keep busy. Then when it comes time that it's necessary to either physically or mentally engage, then you're not in shape. You're not in mental shape, you're not in physical shape, and you won't be able to do the things you need to do. And there's the verse that says what's going to happen is that your limbs will refuse, right? Your body is just going to refuse to do it because you're not able to physically. So therefore, we see from here that it's important to exercise the body and the brain and to keep busy. Tiferes Yisrael points out that a person generally earns their income in one of three ways. So one way is physical activity. You work, you do something that requires, it doesn't have to be schlepping boxes. I mean, it could be that as well, but it could be being a tailor, being almost any a plumber, right, an electrician, anything that you could think of that involves doing it with your body activity. Then that's one way to earn a living. You do a task and you get paid for the task that you did for someone else, usually. A second way is you can be in business. You buy and sell, right? You sell, you're selling merchandise, and so you're not getting paid for your time of the labor that you did, but you're being paid for the items that you own, and that's another second way. The third way, he says, of earning a living is to be paid for your wisdom that you teach other people. The knowledge that you have, you get paid for, whether it be as a teacher, whether it be, it could be, as someone who maybe even writes a book or whatever it might be. I'm not sure if that's exactly the same, but essentially you're being paid for your knowledge. So he says that ideally and he actually comes from the Gemara as well, that the person who does the actual work, and here it says, Ahovas Malacha, to love the work, that's the best of the three in the ideal world, because the person who's in business, while it's a good way to make a living, it does have a little pitfall in that there's more potential for dishonesty in business and for something going wrong in the issue of being completely honest. It could be that you don't even intend to, but somehow you get caught up into, or you ended up accidentally giving something the wrong amount, whatever it might be. And certainly there are plenty of people who are dishonest in business. So it lends itself to a potential for dishonesty. There's a certain level of negativity. The other one about using your knowledge says that also, first of all, really we shouldn't be paid for, if it's Torah knowledge, we shouldn't really be paid for that. We should be doing that right to gain money because of God's Torah, and the Holy Torah is not so nice. So that's one angle. And the other factor he says is that, well, also just in general, being paid he says there's a lot of aggravation, there's a lot of mental aggravation when you're involved in teaching other people. So better to do something that you're getting paid for your work, he says. That's the ideal. Again, all of these are obviously we have plenty of people in other things and many other factors, but there is a very strong important factor in terms of person doing physical labor and being paid for it and even if you don't need the money. Irving Björning points out that also the idea of working is better to work than to take charity, right? A person should try to earn what they can rather than take charity. And he points out that if we look in the Talmud, we'll find many of the sages of the Talmud were actually skilled workers. They had professions. We have Rabbi Yochanan Hassandler, he was the shoemaker, right? We have blacksmiths. We have even Hillel. He chopped wood, rather menial labor. Hillel used to chop wood and earn a small amount of money. He'd take half of the money, he'd feed his family, take care of what he needed, and half the money he'd pay to get entrance into the study hall. It was his tuition, and that's how he did it. So there is something important about working at the same time if you can. Also, he points out, it says love malacha. We translate malacha as work, but malacha, as we know from Shabbat, right, from the laws of Shabbos, malacha is not just doing any kind of work; it's also creative activity. So there's a specialness in being creative, right? When not only are you using your physical skills, you're also using your mental skills at the same time. It's stimulating, and there's a certain satisfaction you get out of doing creative activity, and therefore a person it's something you are more likely to be happy with, to love it. He also points out that in the larger picture of the Mishnah, where it terms of it talks about hating Rabbanut, so he's going back to the idea of being in a rabbinic position. So it's good to be happy with the work you do, but don't you can also be creative in your teaching, and you should also not be doing it for the honor of the position. And finally, Rabbi Hirsch points out that in this Mishnah, there's a certain theme of personal independence, and that is that you should love work, earn a living, be independent in terms of your ability to earn a living, and then the idea of staying away from the leadership positions is because leadership could be very tying down. You get stuck in a leadership position a lot of times. You're not free to do whatever you want. And what ends up happening is also once you get into a leadership position, a lot of people, oh, now I've got power, I got to keep it. And then you start doing things that you would never do under normal conditions to keep your position, right? Somehow or other, you get your mindset changes, and it's like, oh, I have to keep this position, and you start doing things you never would have done before, in a not good way. And finally, he says, avoid powerful friends. Don't get too close to people who are too powerful, because then people could put pressure on you to do things that you don't want to do, or that you shouldn't do. And so that's all of this Mishnah is all about. He says independence, being able to maintain your own independence in how you make a living, and also in the decisions that you make in terms of doing the right thing and not having pressure from outside factors. And we'll hold it there. Have a great day, everyone. We'll finish the Mishnah tomorrow.